Hey YouTube, welcome back to Axis and Allies the Garrison. This is Detroit coming to you from the bunker here in Rochelle Park, New Jersey for another episode of the YouTube Wars. It is episode 3.5. It is finally the UK's turn to go at it, okay? It is Sire Blood who is in command of the United Kingdom forces throughout the entirety of the game map. Okay, needless to say, for those of you who do not know or who have been following the game, the UK sustained heavy losses in round one when it lost a good chunk of its naval assets or fleets in the Atlantic, and it also lost its entire air force round one. Again, round two, same thing. The UK once again lost the remainder of its naval assets in the Atlantic, okay, and a good chunk of its air force all over again, okay. And to add insult to injury, here comes round three, and what happens? The Japanese do the unthinkable, and they go for Calcutta. Okay, so in essence, three very bad, very tough consecutive rounds for the UK. The UK has been bearing the brunt of this war for the Allies without a doubt. It's time. It's time for the Russians to come in. Okay, it's time for the Allies to come in. And not to say that my good buddy Cowboy has not been fighting. He has been doing his absolute best, okay, to engage the enemy. But it's just that the enemy, the Germans, are just too damn powerful at this point in time. It's early in the war, folks, and remember, keep in mind that the Axis powers are very powerful early on in the game. So it's very hard for Russia, the Soviet Union, under the command of Cowboy, to actually make its presence felt yet. The Axis need help. They need help bad. They need help from the USA to come in. And that's where G.I. Joe will be coming in soon. In his last round turn, G.I. Joe, with his Americans, declared war on the Axis. Question is, can the Americans make it in time? That is the main question here that we'll have to answer. But now, let's deal with this topic, with this subject, this episode. It is Sire Blood. Those of you who know Sire know very well that Sire is a very crafty player. He always comes at you from places and angles that you just do not see coming. And I guarantee you, folks, that's exactly what he's going to do today. He is going to turn the tables on the Japanese, or at least he's going to make the Japanese think twice, which is exactly what he will do. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed my little rant here. I sometimes go off on tangents, and I just keep on going. But I hope you enjoy the episode, and I really do look forward to hearing your commentaries. And by the way, I am doing my best to get back to all of your commentaries. Just bear with me if I don't get to them in time. It's very time-consuming. This whole hobby, playing the game, creating content, answering messages. It takes time, guys, so I promise that I will get to all of them. It's just a matter of time. And if I don't, it's because I just somehow, your message fell through the cracks or on your YouTube messaging platform there. In any case, hope you enjoyed this episode. And by the way, if you haven't signed up, subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. And hit that like button. I press on you to do so. Guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the episode. All right, so it is China's turn. Let's not forget that China is also under the command or under the control of Sire Blood. Okay, so let's go ahead with the purchases that China made. China starts this turn in round three with a total of 11 industrial production certificates. That allows China to purchase 2 infantry and 1 a light cavalry unit. In Sire Blood's game, light cavalry or cavalry units are represented with actual cavalry units. You have a man on a horse, and those are his cavalry units, which is realistically and historically accurate. However, because in my collection I do not have those units, I use armor instead, and what I use are light armor units of the Second World War that the Chinese had in their army. Okay, I'm forgetting the designation or the type of light armors that they use, but I believe they did have a few American and Russian light armored units in their arsenal. Could be wrong on that, but I believe they did. All right, so Let me just go into also, before I move on, the qualities of the light armor, or I'm sorry, light armor or cavalry units. These units cost 4 IPCs. They attack with 2 and defend with 1. Okay, and they can blitz, so they have a movement of 2. Right, so it's a very interesting piece. Definitely gives China some mobility in its options for its own war efforts. All right, so China will be declaring 3 battles. There are the battles for the liberation of Jehol, Amway, and Yunnan. Okay, in Yunnan you have 1 infantry division walking in unopposed. Same thing in Amway, unopposed. And all 6 infantry divisions coming from Shahar will be moving in unopposed into Jehol. For its non-combat movements, okay, the Flying Tigers will be in Shahar. Okay, so let's go on into our non-combat movements. Let's go and place our newly recruited and acquired hardware for the Chinese. And all 3 units, the 2 infantry that were recruited and the light armor, will be placed in Jehol. So that's a total of 8 infantry and 1 light armor in the recently liberated Chinese province of Jehol. Okay, so as I said earlier, China started with a total of 11 IPCs in this round. I believe now, actually no, I believe China started with 12 IPCs. It had 11 in its treasury, but it already had 12 IPCs with the entirety of the accrued value of its territories that it already had either liberated or that the Russians had liberated for them as well. So now these territories in Jehol, Amway, and Yunnan will be liberated. Okay, which means then that the Chinese will be collecting a grand total of 15 industrial production certificates that they'll be carrying over to round 4. Not bad at all for the Chinese. Or segue to the UK's turn. All right, let's review the current ground and naval conditions for the British in the game map. As you folks well know, the British were evicted from India during Japan's turn. The Japanese moved in a fleet in Sea Zone 39, occupied India with just a single artillery division. Okay, thus, in effect, pushing the British out, with the exception of 1 remaining British infantry still located in French Indochina. The UK also was evicted or defeated in the Chinese provinces of Kiangsu and Kiangsi. Both of the defending infantry divisions were knocked out by attacking elements of the Japanese army. All right. In the Mediterranean, things are getting interesting. As you can see, the Axis powers have been able, in effect, to build up quite an array of naval forces that are now confronting the smaller British Navy or fleet in Sea Zone 97, I believe, or 98. Yes, 98. Okay. Sire now is in somewhat of a predicament because he's got to make a choice. Is he going to stand by and maintain his ground in the Mediterranean, or will he fall back into the Indian Ocean? That's something that he's got to deal with, and the decision he's got to make, and of course it's something that he will do in this turn. Also, in Egypt, in Cairo, similar situation. You have the British army or the Allied army consisting of French, Anzacs, and British elements contending with Italian forces in Alexandria. So what are the British going to do? Are they going to hold their ground, or are they going to fall back so that they could fight another day? These are questions that Sire Blood will be answering. Now, in Europe, in England in particular, in the British Isles, things are very quiet. As you can see, the Allies or the British have not built upon their defenses, leaving the British Isles open for a potential sea lion. This is something also that Sire has to deal with. What if Germany turns its wrath on the British Isles? A potential sea lion could go into effect. These are all situations that Sire has got to deal with. And as I said previously, the UK has been dealing with the brunt of the war so far. The US now is ready. It is at war. It finally, this round, declared war on the Axis powers. And G.I. Joe has been doing a pretty decent job of building up the American fleet, naval forces, as well as Air Force and ground units. So the Americans are ready to deploy. What are the Americans going to do on the eastern seaboard as far as the Axis are concerned? Are they going to go into the Mediterranean, or are they going to go directly and help defend Britain? All right, so let's review the purchases that the United Kingdom made. The UK purchased 1 fighter squadron, 1 minor industrial complex, 2 artillery pieces, and 1 armored division. Okay, so let's go ahead then and review the battles that the UK will be making this term. Will be making a total of 4 battles. They are as follows: a battle for Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, battle for Iraq. UK is attacking India with performing an air raid in India with 1 fighter. Okay, and the UK will also be attacking Kwang-si. All right, let's not forget that there is 1 British infantry division posted in French Indochina. British infantry will be walking into Kwang-si, liberating Kwang-si for the Chinese. All right. The second battle. All right. You have the British fighter in eastern Persia at a movement of 1 and 2 will go ahead and perform an air raid. Not an air raid. Yeah, an air raid, you could say. And it will be attacking, though, the artillery division defending in Calcutta. The battle's already been resolved. This artillery division was destroyed. The fighter will return to its original starting location at a movement of 2. Its fuel gauge reads 2 movements left, so it'll be 3 and 4. All right, let's go over to the third battle, the battle in Central Africa, Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. You have 2 artillery divisions, 1 mechanized infantry moving in from Egypt into Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, attacking the lone Italian artillery division, which of course was also destroyed. Once again, the British did not sustain any casualties, and this territory now is liberated and it's back in control of the British. Right, last but not least, the battle for Iraq, pro-Axis Iraq. You have 2 Iraqi infantry divisions defending. You have 3 ground infantry divisions coming from Persia, moving in from the east. Okay. You have 1 naval transport picking up its contingent of 1 infantry, 1 armored unit, heading north at a movement of, let's not forget there's a naval base here, at a movement of 3, 1, 2, and 3. The transport will go into the Red Sea, actually the Persian Gulf. Red Sea is over here in 81, and will unload its amphibious assault force. This amphibious assault force will be working in conjunction with the two British cruisers in Sea Zone 98, which is moving at a movement of 3. 1, 2, and 3. They will perform an offshore naval bombardment on the two defending British Iraqi ground divisions. You have an additional British armored unit movement coming in at a movement of 2. 1, 2, which initiates or starts its attack from Cairo. All right, so that's a total of 2 armored units, 3 infantry, and you have an additional support. You have 2 tactical bombers coming from the carrier based in Sea Zone 98 at a movement of 2. 1 and 2. These fighters, tactical bombers, will also have 2 movements left in their gas gauges. All right, and of course, the battle was already resolved. The 2 Iraqi infantry divisions were lost, and once again, the British did not sustain any casualties. Impressive. Okay. So, let's go straight into non-combat movements. The British fleet in its entirety will choose to fall back into the Red Sea, and at a movement of 3 will link up with the attacking British cruisers 1, 2, and 3. All right, the 2 tactical bombers will link up with the British carrier in the Red Sea. All right, this territory becomes British. All right. Let's go ahead with the other non-combat movements, which is, I believe there's one more. This lone infantry division will be moving into Erie. Okay. And there was also a convoy disruption that was performed where the 3 German U-boats in Sea Zone 109 incurred only 1 IPC damages worth of damage. Kind of redundant there, I guess. On the British. So the British only have to pay 1 IPC's worth of damage. All right, so I believe that the UK will be collecting a total of 35 industrial production certificates for this round. As you can see, Syred has once again, I must say this, Syred is definitely one of those opponents that you can always count on him being unpredictable. Even though I'm going to claim, and my allies, my teammates can vouch for me, I always had the sneaking suspicion, and I kept on telling them that Syred will fall back into the Red Sea, that he will come back and potentially attack India once again, or at least threaten India once again. It makes sense. It makes sense. Oh, by the way, before I go on with my little rant here, let me just go with the placements of units. I don't want to, fall out of line here. Let's go ahead with the placements of units. 2 artillery. 2 artillery will go in 1 armored unit into South Africa. The minor industrial complex will go, of course, in Persia, and the single fighter that was purchased will go into or onto the UK in England itself. All right. And of course, the UK will be collecting 35 IPCs this round. All right. So let me just continue with my little rant here. As I was saying, to me, it makes perfect sense for the UK, for Syred to bring back his forces into the Red Sea. This will now be the center of operations for the British. This minor industrial complex is key because, why? The UK can still place some pressure on the Japanese and deal with the growing Japanese menace here, while simultaneously checking the British and the Italian and German Axis forces that are coming from the Mediterranean, that are heading eastbound towards the Mediterranean. I believe, if the UK had chosen to stand and fight in both Season 98 and Cairo, I think the Axis would have had the day. It would have been just a matter of time before the British would have been overwhelmed with the combined forces of the Axis powers. Both Germany and Italy would have had the day, would have had the field. So it made sense to me, from my perspective, for Sire to fall back, to bring, to fall back on his lines and reform another location where he could fortify. And in this instance, it is Persia, where he places newly constructed minor industrial complex where he can now check the growing Japanese power while still projecting British naval and air power back on the Japanese, and do the same in Northern Africa and the Middle East as well. All along while still supporting his ally, potentially supporting his ally, the Russians in the north. Or vice versa. The Russians can now also support their ally in the Middle East, the UK. Just a couple of thoughts there that I had. And again, going back to Sire, he's definitely very wily, very flexible in his thinking. And power to him, kudos, because I think this is what I would have done in a similar predicament. All right, guys, thanks for watching. This is the end of this episode. It is now Italy's turn. Hilltop, Pillbox, and his Italians have a go at it now. Guys, as always, don't forget to bunker down and play, and thanks for watching.